Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of the Battlestar Galactica franchise documentary. I'm delighted today to be joined by the one and only Ty Olsson, who played the role of Captain Aaron Kelly in Battlestar Galactica. I suppose, Ty, to start off, Battlestar Galactica, I suppose years go by sort of fairly quickly in sort of your business in terms of certain TV series and certain movies, and some projects can feel a very, very long time ago. Does Battlestar Galactica seem that way to you now, or is it still fresh enough, or do you have to scratch your head and say, did I actually appear in that?
You know what? I have a lot of head scratching. I've been fortunate to be in a lot of projects over the years, and I'm notorious for forgetting what happened yesterday, as it is anyways. So I did something for Twilight. I did a similar interview for Twilight because I had a small role in it. And I literally blanked on my character name, and they were like, "It's okay. Tell us about your character." And I was like, "I wish I could." What's his name again? So yeah, but Battlestar Galactica is a bit unique. It stands out because of what an iconic show it is. So I have some good memories of it, but a lot of fuzzy ones as well.
And I suppose, growing up, in terms of, were you a fan of the original series? Did you get to see the original series growing up, or had you seen the original series before later on in terms of afterwards when it sort of came about, when it was shown on TV later sort of years?
I recall it when I was younger. I didn't watch it myself much, but I figured I seem to remember that one of my brothers did. Like one of my older brothers did, but I didn't personally watch it much. But I remember the famous robots from the time, the Cylons from the time. So yeah, I do have a memory of it, but not super clear. I didn't watch a lot of television when I was a kid.
And I suppose the likes of Dirk Benedict being on the original sort of Battlestar Galactica, playing Starbuck, it probably gave a sort of a gloss to the sort of series. But it has to be said, this Battlestar Galactica is very, very different in terms of the sort of original sort of series. An awful lot more in terms of human emotions in sort of this sort of series. And in terms of sort of watching Battlestar Galactica, if you were never involved in it yourself, would you sort of sit down on the couch and say, God, this is riveting TV?
I think I would, and you know what? It's funny. I haven't actually watched it. I mean, I've caught an episode or two, but it is a series that I would enjoy because I do like the sci-fi and fantasy genre. So I don't know. Maybe I'm waiting for enough years to go by that I can detach enough so I can watch it really with a fan's eyes, as opposed to as a critic, as somebody who was in it, because it really was a fantastic world they created.
And I suppose, Ty, speaking to a good few of the characters so far, what strikes me, speaking to Aaron Douglas, and I suppose he went for multiple roles before he got cast as the chief. Grace Park, speaking to her, she tried out for Starbuck before she got her role as Boomer. Halo, Tamo Pennicott tried out for Apollo. In terms of yourself getting chief Captain Aaron Kelly, had you tried out sort of for other roles in Battlestar Galactica? Had you gone for other auditions? And how did the opportunity come about for you to be cast in the role as Aaron Kelly? Was it just your agent coming to you and saying, listen, we got this role, and it was just the one audition?
Well, remind me, what was Aaron Douglas's character? Was his name's?
Chief.
Chief
Terror.
I was actually up for that role.
Okay.
That's the role that I read for and I tested for, and at the last minute they decided to go with Aaron, who I don't think was originally in the running for it. Originally I went in, it was two other guys, and then they ended up going with a third guy, which was Aaron Douglas, who's a friend of mine. So I'm glad he did a fantastic job on it. But yeah, I had thought I was going in for Chief. Yeah.
And so how did this opportunity come in relation to Captain Aaron Kelly? Was it created at a later date? Had this character in sort of mind, and they remembered you from the auditions and they said, listen, we'll give Ty a call here. We feel he could play this role.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a bump down thing. So when Aaron got Chief Tyrell, they just kind of, things bumped down the road. They went, oh, we need somebody for this role. Ty would be good at that. So, and it kind of threw me off because I had tested for a completely different role. So when they handed me that, I was like, I never read for this role. But it was, it turned out to be a good sized role at the end of the day anyway. So.
Yeah, and the character, I suppose, you played, Captain Aaron Kelly, he sort of role in terms of the Battlestar. He was not third in command, really, in such. He was behind, obviously, William Adam, Junior Colonel Ty, but he was sort of next in line in terms of the hierarchy, in terms of the running of the sort of ship, and he was a sort of a multitasker on board the Galactica. His hand involved in everything in terms of the operations of the ship.
Yeah, exactly. I like to think of it as that he did all the behind the scenes work. He was kind of the right hand man that worked in silence behind everybody. He did more than everybody knows. He just kept busy, and he was kind of like the back office guy who got stuff done.
And in terms of when they pitched you that sort of role, how did they sort of describe Aaron Kelly to you in terms of what was his role in the sort of Battlestar? What was written down to sort of sum him up to give you an idea of what he would be like?
Well, I don't know if they knew that deep in that early in that exactly what role he played, because as you know, he didn't come back the entire first season. So I think it was one of those where, and to be honest, sometimes you get pitched a role and they'll tell you, oh, it's fantastic. He's going to be in the whole movie. It's great, great, great. And then by the time you show up on set, you're like, wait a minute. It's not quite what I thought it was. I don't think they knew exactly what to do with him, because he wasn't around a lot after the pilot episode. And then he came back in second season, and then he kind of ended up getting shot in kind of sporadically. I feel like they weren't sure what exactly to do with him. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think they had a clear-cut idea. So it was every once in a while they'd be like, oh, who you should be in the scene. So yeah, I mean, I knew he was the landing officer. I assumed he'd always be on deck, bringing the ships in and out. But I guess when they realized it, that kind of pegged him into a corner that they couldn't use him all that much. I think, and here's the other thing. I mean, the world was so fantastic, and there's so many characters and so many storylines. I think it was hard to give everybody, the time, because you only have so much time to use, right? But yeah, he was the landing officer, and so I think he took care of the logistics behind the scenes of the Vipers coming and going.
And I suppose, Ty, being in a sort of recurring sort of role like that, do you have to sort of leave yourself open in terms of sort of callbacks? Because obviously other projects could come along that could offer you sort of a main sort of big role, and they could come and asking you, saying, well, are you available for this? And you could be, oh, I'm shooting this at the moment, or I'm shooting that sort of movie at the moment.
Yeah.
So in terms of that sort of, did that ever happen during the seasons of Battlestar Galactica where you were wanted for a time and you were sort of shooting something else?
I think that happened a lot of times, because I think that was, in fairness to production, I think I was so busy with other shows because I wasn't the character that they had signed as a guarantee, because I wasn't in every episode. And I just am fortunate enough to have worked a lot. So I think most of the time they called and said, hey, we don't have time for a show. And it was like, I'm on another show right now. And so scheduling conflicts more than anything that I think kept me off the show, which makes it difficult. You can't do a through line with somebody who's not always available. And it was nobody's fault. I just, because he was the kind of character that sometimes an episode they'd write, he'd be in there, and then they'd call me up and I'd be like, I'm out of town, I'm on a movie, I'm shooting a TV series. So yeah, that was I'm sure I was a major pain in their ass for that.
And I suppose, Ty, in terms of the episodes you appeared in Scattered, Valley of the Darkness, Final Cut, The Sun Always Rises, and well, in terms of one of your sort of big sort of the storylines, where it was probably as expectation, or it was that you probably had a sort of what I would say a daredevil side to you in terms of criminal intentions in relation to Gaius's lawyer, Baltar's sort of lawyer, where you were sort of deemed that you could be involved in that somehow. Right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was part of the rebellion group that was trying to blow stuff up, and yeah, at the end there, there were some interesting turns of events with the character and the show.
And was that all sort of tied in with that sort of mutiny sort of angle that was going ahead? That sort of struggle for power between Gate and Dam, sort of thing, where the officers of the Battlestar had to sort of take sides and come down on one side or the other.
Exactly. Yeah, I was mixed up in that. And this is where I'm getting fuzzy again in my memory. But yes, I was definitely playing on one team, and I can't remember the details about what was happening in the show at the time. But yeah, I mean, it was the mutiny event. Yep.
Okay. And I suppose in terms of the actual, I suppose we've seen many sort of spaceships, the sets of them, and how sort of realistic they sort of look. And speaking to Eddie Olmos, he told me that he did very much the Battlestar, the sort of interior. He wanted to sort of resemble sort of a real sort of, there was real sort of technology sort of using it with the radars, with the sort of thing. It almost felt like you were really on a sort of spaceship. Every sort of angle was looked at. It wasn't like this a new sort of modern 2500. This sort of looked legit. It looked old and crusty and sort of parts. Yeah. It almost felt like realistic in terms of, were you sort of blown away by just the whole instrumental side of the inside the interior of it?
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, the sets were so detailed. I always likened it to kind of like the interior of like a World War II submarine. Do you know? It always feeling like everything was kind of like there was this immense pressure on this old military style. Like, yeah, so it was always so impressive going on the sets and seeing the level of detail and creativity that they used in that. And for me, what was interesting was, because my character was in and out so much, it's interesting to come back and try to submerge yourself back in that world and to remember the jargon. Or like, I remember doing an episode and the director was like, you sit here and you can, do what you always do. And I'm like, I've never sat at this seat in my life. What are you talking about? Because he just assumed that my character had been there, but the truth was my character had never been in that spot. So trying to relearn what everything meant, because it was that detailed and it was important to me. And I'm like, I don't want to do something that wasn't supposed to have been done in this. I don't hit buttons I'm not supposed to hit, switch levers I'm not supposed to hit, because it's all been established. And you try to keep the continuity alive, because these sets deserved it. They were so beautiful. They were so detailed.
And is that sort of important in terms of your role as sort of a character in terms of the operations? Sometimes people say that some people are fans of the show, they won't see certain things in detail, but other sort of diehard fans will probably say, wait a minute, in terms of he's never done that before, or that's not his role, or something like that. And they sort of pick up on every sort of little aspect. And I suppose directors, when they're creating such a project, they're sort of very finesse in terms of what's done before to try and keep it so there's no sort of glitches appear. Is that very evident in sort of Battlestar Galactica? Yeah,
I think you always have a showrunner who's kind of following, making sure that the story and the continuity is staying true as well as the flavor of the show. And so that show again was so mammoth. The world was so big that yes, there was a lot of that, trying to find the continuity from episode to episode, and particularly for my character, because I might be gone for 5 episodes, and so I'd have to fill in what happened between the episode the last time you saw me and what happened now.
And in terms of that, I suppose being a recurring actor, it sort of strikes up the sort of thing in terms of research. For every time did you, when you came back to Battlestar Galactica, was it a sort of a research where you had to sort of re-jog on what's gone on since you sort of left, so you sort of be in tune with the sort of the rest of the cast?
100%. And it was always very stressful, because I would always come back and be like, okay, tell me what's going on. What happened? Because it's not like the episodes had even aired. Because usually, so I'd always be like, tell me what's going on. Who are we fighting with now? Who is this person? What's it? So yeah, it was a constant detective work to come back. And like I said, and not only that, but also if I might be on a new part of the set that I'd never seen before, and be like, okay, what is this room? What are we doing here? What is that lever for? How does that work? And so it was always a bit of a stressful thing for me to show up on.
And one thing that strikes me about Battlestar Galactica in terms of the cast is the sort of people knew people, an awful lot of the people before they sort of got on the sort of TV series. So there was really great sort of friendships there before even people were sort of cast. And one thing you hear about Battlestar Galactica, which is very sort of strange, is that there was no real tensions between anyone. Normally, when you have a cast of 12 or 13 actors, there's certain people after a good number of seasons that probably have, there's a bit of friction or people don't really see eye to eye, but there's no sort of stories or something, anything sort of coming out through the grapevine of disgruntlement in terms of Battlestar Galactica. It all seems to be one big sort of happy, everyone seems to enjoy their time, only can speak good of everyone that seems to be in on the show.
I think, like any family, there's probably little squabbles here and there, but miraculously, this show was very drama-free in my memory. Yeah, everyone got along, and there wasn't a lot of egos in play, and everybody loved what they're doing, and everybody respected each other, and it was a group that really worked well together and played well together too. A lot of people are still friends, going on years now after the show has been finished. So, yeah, and we've all worked together. A lot of us have worked together on other shows, and yeah, it's not rare, but it's certainly a delight when you can work on a show and there's nobody butting heads and there's no egos getting in the way and everybody's having a good time. And it certainly was one of those.
And Ty, being a recurring sort of actor in that sort of role, what's it like in terms of maybe you finished up a project in New York or Los Angeles and you're told, right, of a Friday or Thursday, and you're sort of told that you needed to be in Vancouver or British Columbia or whatever for the Monday. Do you sort of get a sense then, are you asking for yourself, well, what's the timeline? Am I going to be here for 2 shows or sort of 3 shows? And how do you sort of work that sort of in then in terms of commitment, and do you get a sense then of how many hours you're going to be on the set each day? Is that sort of told to you, or are you just told you're going to be here for 2 episodes, so we need you for 14 days and whatever those hours might be, or how does that work out?
Sometimes you're guaranteed the episodes. You'll be like, okay, we know we have you for 5 episodes, so you have a timeline that you have to slot off to be there. And then what I'll often do is if I know I'm going to be out of town for a good chunk of time, I will ask for, you might ask for extra plane tickets to go home to visit your family, look at time slots when you're not working so that you can go away. The problem is that a lot of people are facing now is with COVID. So I've seen my wife once right now in 5 months because I've been in Canada working. And so I plan to go. My last day of work is the 11th of this month, and then I'm flying home to California to spend 2 weeks, but then I need to be back by the 8th of January, but I have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So I have to come back. So so you're starting to juggle. It's not as easy as it used to be, where you, at least from Vancouver to LA, you could fly home for a weekend, but now with the quarantine stuff, you can't. So it's a struggle.
And I suppose, Ty, lastly, before I let you go, this sort of question I sort of finish in terms of all these sort of interviews, in terms of documentaries. Probably the hardest question I'll ask you, but an interesting one all the same. Let's pretend there was a Battlestar Galactica encyclopedia, a sort of dictionary as such, and they put your character, Captain Aaron Kelly, into that sort of encyclopedia. And they asked you, Ty Olsson, having portrayed the role of Captain Aaron Kelly, okay, to write those 2 sentences to describe him in your own words. What would you like those 2 sentences to read to sum up Aaron Kelly? What did he stand for?
Aaron Kelly was a man of principle who stood for what he believed was right, even when his actions ended up being wrong.
Okay. On that note, Ty Olsson, a pleasure talking to you today. I mean, what's a busy time for you and everyone's sort of involved at the moment. Thanks for sharing your memories of Battlestar Galactica, playing the role of Captain Aaron Kelly, 3rd in command in the Battlestar Galactica sort of ship. Thanks for sharing your memories of multiple episodes, your time as a recurring actor in Battlestar Galactica, and the revelation that you tried out for the character of Chief Terrell as well. Ty Olsson, a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you all the best in 2021.
Thank you, sir. All the best to you as well.
Thank you.